Morning everybody and welcome to today's Cabinet meeting. We'll start off with item 1 on the agenda, which is apologies for absence. I believe we've got apologies from Councillor Bill Tomlinson. Those are noted then. Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest, please? None? Minutes from our previous meeting, which have been circulated, are you happy to sign those as a true record?
Madam Chair.
Excellent, thank you very much. We'll skip over item 4 for today. We'll go to item 5, which is the financial Outturn report. Councillor Ray Evans.
Thank you, Leader. Cabinet, as you will recall, the gross revenue budget for 2021-22 was 412 million and the net budget 131 million. And I'm delighted to be able to tell you that the estimated revenue outturn position for that year will be within budget by £48,000. Sorry, that nearly had to go, didn't it? After the proposed transfers to reserves and balances have been made. Just checking you were listening. Furthermore, due to the sustained effective financial management, the year-end position has also allowed some funds to be set aside to support the future medium-term financial strategy, including an allowance for inflationary pressures and supplementing the Invest to Save capacity reserve to support delivery of further ongoing savings and operating improvements. Capital spending ended the year at 57.37 million against an approved budget of 73 million. The programme of expenditure continued to be impacted by the effects of coronavirus pandemic. However, all schemes are now in progress and some rephasing of expenditure into 2023 will also generate some treasury management benefits. COVID-19 continued to have an impact on collection rates during 21-22. However, at the end of the year, income collection was ahead of target set by the council tax and business rates, while sales ledger was slightly behind. It's difficult to predict the ongoing impact of COVID and spiralling inflation on income collection going forward, and the position will, of course, be closely monitored throughout the year. Whilst New Place is a separate legal entity and as such prepares its own accounts, the Council is also required to prepare consolidated group accounts, which incorporate New Place's financial position as part of the financial statements. The unaudited accounts show that New Place generated an operating profit after interest and taxation of £407,000, with the company issuing a dividend of £163,000, which was paid to the council as its sole investor. The council also received income from New Place totalling £1.8 million during that year, net of additional interest and other marginal costs. And I would remind members that the financial benefits that arise from New Place are invested in providing frontline services and have helped to reduce the budget savings that would otherwise have had to have been made as the result of government grant cuts and additional demands and increasing costs on adult social care and children's safeguarding. Cabinet, this council can be rightly proud that this outturn position has been achieved after delivering 1.73 million budget savings in 21-22, on top of the 126 million savings made since 2009, giving a total of just over £133 million ongoing savings. That's equivalent to around £1,600 less that the council has available for every household to fund services in this borough. It is this council's long track record of sound financial management that has meant that we have been well placed to withstand the continuing financial impact of the coronavirus pandemic in 21-22. And it's a testament to Cabinet members and senior and wider management teams, who I'd like to thank, that despite the significant and unprecedented financial pressures, the Council has ended the year within budget. This is a solid basis on which to move forward into 22-23 and surely demonstrates our ongoing financial resilience in challenging circumstances. Cabinet, you're asked to approve and note the recommendations contained in section 2 of the Outturn report.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Thank you. Any comments or questions from members of the Cabinet? Lee?
Yeah, it's thank you, and thank you to Councillor Evans for the report. It's a neat summary, isn't it, albeit in lots of words and complicated words about what we are. First of all, the performance of officers and the Cabinet in terms of this foundation that's been built over a number of years now, over a decade, firm financial foundation which supports everything that we're about, whether that's protecting the most vulnerable young and old people in our communities, whether it's attracting business, private investment, creating jobs to Telford, making Telford the place to do business, whether it's creating opportunities for young people, advice and guidance for unemployed, building quality houses so that Telford people have got good quality private rented homes to live in, whether it's enhancing our fantastic parks and green spaces, whether it's investing in infrastructure so that Telford people can travel to and from work and home and leisure in an easier way than they can elsewhere, whether it's investing in our high streets so that they're bucking a trend in terms of where we see elsewhere empty shops, soulless high streets. Ours are on the bounce back. That's what we're about. That's what we're about, and I hope that most residents and almost everyone will actually nod their heads and say, you know what, that's a good set of ambitions, a good set of aspirations. And as I say, this report demonstrates that even during the toughest of times, during COVID, something that's unprecedented in our lifetimes and people's lifetimes before, that's all built on a very sound financial footing. What it also does, this report, though, is it exposes a couple of things. First of all, it exposes that government, as Councillor Evans said, government funding over 12 years now into those things that we all agree are good things for our residents has been severely lacking. It has been cut beyond comprehension, and that is still the direction of travel of this government, and that's shocking when we think about some of those things that we agree are good things. It also in part exposes, and we remember the time, a government that had to be brought kicking and screaming to the table in terms of honouring that promise that they would cover the costs of COVID that councils had to bear. We know that there was a significant amount of pressure that had to be put on them to do that, and the facts still, the jury's still out on in terms of whether they actually ever did that or not. But as I say, this is a fantastic reflection of the firm foundations that those aspirations are built on. I think anyone that is critical of this, who suggests another way forward, suggests that we perhaps shouldn't borrow to invest, because actually if you don't borrow to invest, you don't generate surplus to put into some of these things that we know our residents want. I think they've got to set out that alternative very clearly and demonstrate how they can maintain and preserve all those things that we agree are important. But it's a good report, solid foundations that fund wider aspirations.
Thank you very much, Lee. Anybody else? No. Andrew, would you like to comment?
Yeah. Yes, I think it's generally accepted the government actually did pretty well through COVID, certainly with the furlough scheme and everything else, and they did as much as any other government, I suspect, across the world. I mean, it is a shame we didn't end up with a £48 million surplus, as you said. That would have been very useful indeed. The thing I find probably strange about this is the income collection. At a time like this, when we're suffering from COVID and people really were under the cosh for all sorts of reasons, including financial reasons, that the income target is ahead of what was actually predicted. But coming down to the issues around the budget, quite clearly, the two problem areas are still children's and adult social care. And that is a problem we've been wrestling with for some time. Now, I've made it pretty clear for a long time, at least I hope I have, that this really needs to be funded centrally by central government, and it needs to be taken away from local authorities to that extent. Because the impact on this, on the rest of the budget, is absolutely immense. Hopefully that after many years of successive governments that really hadn't grasped this issue and tackled it, that we're now going some way to doing that. And if we are, that is something that I would certainly welcome.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you very much for those comments. I think you're absolutely right about adult social care and children's services. The local government association, cross-party of course, but Conservative-led, have been talking about the gap nationally in adult social care and children's services for a long, long time, and across the country it's billions of pounds. And what we're seeing, unfortunately, is a sticking plaster approach year on year rather than a multi-year approach to these issues. At the same time, demand is growing significantly. And you can't fix the NHS without fixing social care, and you can't make sure that children are safe, happy and healthy in their homes if you don't fix children's social care. So these two things are really, really important. I'm hoping that the rhetoric does convert into some action by the government, who's had 12 years now to get this right, and they haven't got it right. I think the other thing I would like to highlight, Ray, and drawing your thanks to the Cabinet team and officers around our approach, is that we're doing this with our hands tied behind our backs. One, because of the settlement that we get from the government, and as you quite rightly said, we've had cuts and more cuts. We've had comments about levelling up over the last 2 years. Well, levelling up for Telford Wrekin is a £23 million grant as part of a £200 million scheme for a building, and that isn't levelling up. Levelling up is about people and communities, not building and places. And quite frankly, we are in the Sunday league of allocations when it comes to levelling up. If you look at other areas of the country who are getting 70, 80, 90, £100 million worth of levelling up funding because their members of parliament are actively going after that cash, working constructively and positively with our local councils, they're getting that benefit. And we do need to see far more money coming to Telford and Wrekin. And the other area that we are constrained by is that we are on the side of our residents. So we're the only council in the country to pledge to freeze our council tax this current year and next year, despite the fact that Conservatives and Telford Wrekin voted against that. And that means that we're not raising council tax in the way that other councils are. That's compounded by the fact that we've already got the lowest council tax in the West Midlands, compounded by the fact that we've got a low council tax base. The proportion of homes in bands A and B much higher than the national average, compounded by the fact that other councils rely upon money from car park charges and car park permits and all those other things that we simply do not do here in Telford Wrekin because we're on the side of our residents. So we're trying our best in a difficult set of circumstances, but the results that we're getting are phenomenal. If you look at our free swimming, our leisure offer, we talk about investing in play parks, and other councils are talking about closing play parks. We're talking about investing in a new swimming pool in Dorley, when other councils are talking about closing swimming pools. We're investing in roads when other people have roads which are full of potholes. We're investing in our neighbourhood services at a time that other council areas are struggling with litter. So overall, we have a positive picture, but we could do so much more, so much more, if the government funded us fairly and funded us in a way that our residents deserve. And I do hope that in the coming weeks and months that does indeed happen. So that's been proposed and seconded. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Ken. We'll now move then to our next item, which is item 6, which is our local development scheme, 47 to 66 in the pack. Richard Overton.
So, thank you, Sean. The Council are publishing a new local development scheme covering 2022 to 2025. Local planning authorities are required to have a local development scheme in place, and the Council were committed to publishing one once the government had set out its intended planning reforms, which they have recently published. It is worth noting the government have dropped their original proposals for a zoning approach, which we as a council objected to, and that of course is welcome. Having a local development scheme in place is an important part of maintaining local control over local decisions and the plan making process. The document provides residents and businesses with a forward view on planning policy matters in the borough. This includes 2 more parish-led neighbourhood plans coming forward, in addition to 7 already made plans, and a supplementary planning document for the Iron Bridge Gorge World Heritage Site. The local development scheme contains a timetable for progressing the review of the Telford Wrekin local plan. This will enable the Council to respond positively to issues such as climate change, the post-pandemic recovery and infrastructure delivery. I therefore move the recommendations 3.1 and 3.2.
Thank you very much. That's seconded. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? No? Andrew, any comments or questions on this one?
Yeah, I would really. I think it was a shame to pause the local plan review, but I think I agree absolutely with the reasons for doing that. As has been mentioned by Richard, zoning was was not the way forward. I think it's an American system, and I don't think that would have suited us at all. And I lobbied, hopefully in all the right places against that for a change, and hopefully we're going to see a change in that as well. However, we've got an opportunity now to have a look at the local plan in its entirety and absolutely get that right. Now, it strikes me that we're behind Wales with what they're doing with developments around about ground pumps, solar panels, the green agenda, and there's an opportunity here to actually catch up with that. There's also an opportunity, if you remember, I presented to full council about protecting farmland, and I think that's equally as important, either grade 1, 2 or 3 farmland that we need to protect, regardless of anything else, because of the issue of food security. And if one thing that Ukraine has taught us is that food security now is absolutely paramount. Now, from memory, I think we're importing round about, I think it's about 70%, I might be wrong on that, of the food that we consume. Clearly, that has to change. Now, there's an opportunity here, isn't there, to grow local, sell local, buy local, which is sustainable in itself, and to bring that forward. Now, you know, I would like to see if it's possible for sort of progress reports to come back to Cabinet on this. It's an important issue and something that we have to deal with. The other thing that this is going to throw up is where we're inviting proposals to develop other areas of the borough. That's going to be quite contentious. Now, that's going to also affect elected members and workload, etc. And quite understandably, people are going to be worried about that. Now, I understand there are issues of confidentiality around this, where inquiries are made. But would it be possible to inform and update elected members on what is likely to come forward into their wards, what sort of pressures we're likely to be facing for development, so it will enable us to do our own jobs. Now, as I say, I think it's a real opportunity to do something quite special, and I'm quite happy to play any part in that I possibly can. And certainly, if it comes to local government, central government, you know, I will try and open whatever doors we need to do to achieve that.
Okay, I think just on the point around solar farms, clearly, I'm really glad that members of Parliament in Shropshire, actually, and elsewhere, have raised that as a national issue. The moment the planning regulations simply do not work in terms of getting that balance right, and I'm glad that members of Parliament from right across the country of all parties are picking that up with central government, and that regulations change, because for too long, I think, the devolution of blame has happened around planning whilst the national policies are set, and I'm glad there's a recognition on solar farms that that is not right, and it'll be interesting to see what the government inspector says in regards to some of the appeals that he's hearing currently, or she's hearing currently. Richard, do you want to just pick up the other points?
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's a pre-planning inquiry that members get as well, so they can see what's coming their way. On the issue of the local plan review, I mean, we will not be speak to members when the call for sites is there, because it's it is confidential. But once that is closed, and once we've done assessments on the land, then I'm sure that where we see develop, we can work with local elected members on that issue.
Thank you. Right, it's been proposed. Just very, very quickly, Andrew, please.
Very quickly. I mean, last time we were criticised by the inspector for doing a desktop exercise on assessing incoming inquiries. Can we sort of make sure that we do look at this fully this time?
Well, I don't think that was a valid criticism, actually, but I've got full confidence in our officer team around this, and as you know, Andrew, quite rightly, elected members are not involved in the process of call for sites, quite rightly, and you'd understand the reasons for that. So I have confidence in the officer team. I hope that you do too. Right, so it's been proposed, it's been seconded. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you very much. We'll move on then to our final report this morning, which is a good news story, which is pride in our play areas. Karen Healy.
Thank you. I like to bring the good news stories. So, thank you very much. This report is about investment into our play areas. As members are aware, we've already committed £2 million investment into our open spaces more generally, and a further £1 million investment into parks, specifically with a view to raising the standard and achieving more Green Flag awards as that national accreditation demonstrates that quality of our open spaces. Some of that funding, as we've been allocating and identifying projects, has been allocated to play areas, but it's become apparent really as we've worked through that a lot of our smaller play areas that are set in the heart of people's communities also would benefit greatly from some investment, and therefore this additional investment package has been brought forward for that purpose. And we know that play areas are really important to our communities, and my colleagues will know that I'm particularly passionate about parks and open spaces and the value that they bring, and I often use the phrase start with the park, because I actually think a lot of the issues that we deal with further down the line, actually, you know, a bit like housing, this is a kind of a foundation area for me. If we can get things right here, actually you can then you know, sort of reduce some issues that we deal with further down the line. So for example, children that are out taking part in active play are much less likely to be obese and have health problems further in later on in their lives that we then deal with through social care and so on. Children who are occupied in, you know, good activities where they're having fun in their communities, in safe and play areas with natural supervision, where there's lots of other families there, then they're less likely to be getting into trouble and involved in crime. So there's all sorts of positive benefits associated with investing in our play areas, as well as just, you know, the immediacy of the quality of children's play. We also know that we're in a cost of living crisis at the moment. So, you know, if you're a family and you're struggling to take your kids out to things that you have to pay for, we've got this wealth of open space and play areas that are, you know, within walking distance of people's homes, and so we want to make sure that those facilities are really good quality, and that families can have a good day out at no cost to themselves at all on those areas. As Councillor Evans set out in her report, we're able to make this kind of investment because of the very strong financial position we're in, because of the decisions that have been taken over the last 10 years. And this investment supplements the other investment that we put into our play areas through developer contributions, and helps us meet the gap in those areas where we don't have very much development, so the opportunities for securing play area improvements through developer contributions are limited. So I move the recommendations, and I'll just say this is just another example of where this administration and this council is on the side of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. Is that seconded? Thank you, Eileen. Eileen, do you want to say?
I wanted to say that I really welcome this report, and thanks to Councillor Healy and to officers for their work on it. You know, it goes alongside things like our 10 by 10. These areas aren't just play, they create sort of those building blocks for our young people. I think when they're growing up, if you've got good play facilities, it really does make a difference. I particularly welcome the fact that we are doing some targeted investment across our areas of most need in terms of play provision. I think that's really important, and also the fact that we've got plans for sensory and naturalised play. I think, you know, one of our main aims is to make sure that every child gets access to these kinds of facilities, so specialised facilities for children with disabilities. I think that's really, really important, so I really welcome it, so thanks for that.
Thank you, Eileen. Kelly?
Just to say, I also welcome the report. Obviously, for me, it's benefiting young people's well-being and getting them active out. As leisure we're trying to do is get them out in the communities, get them active, get them moving. There's an age group that we need to get more active. I think that works for that. And the health and well-being, you know, just being out and being active in the community. So I think it's vitally important, something we invest in to invest in our young people's future. So thank you.
Shirley?
Yeah, I really do welcome the investment. It's not only in our green flag parks, but it's also in our local small parks. On a personal level, it's fantastic to see the new lighting scheme coming forward at Harthill Park. That has been something that residents have complained about for quite a long time, and that, you know, it's an excellent investment in that play area. It not only will improve the play facilities and the time they can do it, but actually it also builds into our safer communities. It's going to be a much safer route for people to use in the winter, so you know there'll be a stronger sense of safety in the community, as well as feeding into the wellbeing agenda, which has also been mentioned. and our 10 by 10. There are so many activities in our park that are available to young people, you know, that is from that. Families have got somewhere where they can play in safety, and we've got some wonderful green spaces across the district which we're able to do. I'm really delighted to see the investment in the small local parks. I know myself in my own ward how important those small local parks are to families. They can actually go to providing free leisure facilities, and in the current cost of living crisis it's actually very, very vital and somewhere really local. So I welcome the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Andrew, anything on this one?
Yeah, I think this is where we're part company really, and I end up as Billy No Mates, I suppose. You know, what's being proposed here is very laudable, and Lord knows we put a lot of effort and money into our local parks for very much the same reasons. But to borrow a further 750k, another £750,000 on top of the, or at least as part of the £564,000 borrowing that we have at the moment. I mean, that's the sort of borrowing you get in the size of a small country. We should be cutting our cloth accordingly, and we're actually maxing out the association's credit card. How on earth can this administration, and I see Councillor Carter smiling, and if I make you smile, Lee, that's always good, stating to full council that borrowing at, I think it's about 113 million was far too high, and you took it down to around about 94, which you said was sustainable. And here we are now, £500 million, 564. There is a lot of money there already in 106 agreements that you can use. You could use local councils, and certainly in my area, those councils do contribute towards play areas, and try and work hand in glove with those to provide and improve facilities.
Okay.
But you really have to stop this. I mean, it's madness. You know, who would have ever thought we'd be sitting here with £500 million or over that of borrowing? Incredible, absolutely incredible.
Thank you, Andrew. As they say, I think it was Churchill said, you're entitled to your own opinions, but you're not your own facts. The council does not sit here today with £500 million worth of debt, and you've been told that by the Section 151 officer. So it's completely a complete lie to suggest that. That's not factual. And I think the people of the residents of Telford Wrekin, the families of Telford Wrekin, will be quite aghast. But yet again, when it comes to investment in play parks and leisure equipment and leisure areas, the Conservative Party are against it. It's quite sad, really. They voted against the swimming pool for Dawley, despite the fact that they have leaflets going out there saying they want it. They voted against it. Now there's leaflets and social media from Conservative candidates talking about investment in parks. We've just heard it very clearly. They're against it. We talk about cost of living and council tax, and we froze it, and they voted against it. The reality is that there's only one party on the side of residents and families in this town. That's the Labour Party, and I've got to say, given where the national financial situation is at the moment, and the over £1 trillion worth of debt being wasted day in and day out, I'll take no lessons from anybody to say that we can't invest in our play parks for the children of this town, who've gone through the most horrific period of time over the last couple of years, and they deserve somewhere decent to go and play. Caroline, there was a couple of more detailed points. Did you want to pick them up?
I just want to pick up on the around the community sums, the developer contributions. We don't actually have development in all parts of our borough. There are areas where there is no opportunity to utilise, as you know, with developer contributions, it has to be relevant to the development. We can't just spend that anywhere in the borough. So there are areas where we simply can't do that, and those play areas also need investment. We don't want a two-tier system of play provision, and you know, as Councillor Clear did say, you know, part of this is also about identifying those groups for whom our play equipment doesn't quite work. So our, you know, for our, you know, children with disabilities, children with sensory needs, you know, teenage girls, you know, a lot of our teenage equipment isn't something that the teenage girls want to use. So we've got to try and meet the needs of all of our children, and we can't just rely on development to do that.
Thank you very much. And I just want to add to that there are some parks in our borough that went in 40 years ago. that need dramatically improving. There was one in my own ward where actually there was a mixed approach. There was Section 106 from a nearby development. There's some money from the local town council and a bit of money from Telford Wrekin Council, which transformed a 1960s park into something that is serving a large housing estate in my ward that is used day in, day out by young people. It's quite amazed. It's been. Yeah, very.
I was just going to say, it's also health inequalities. We've got gym equipment that is being staffed and utilised for people that have health inequalities, which is a massive thing in our borough. And we need to be able to give people opportunity to exercise. You can't go to gyms, you can't afford. So it's tackling that, and the white paper, your government's white paper, they're not funding that. We've got to invest into the health inequalities, haven't we, as a result of that?
So it's been moved, it's been seconded. All those in favour? Brilliant.
It was all going so well as well.
Yeah, it was.
And the meeting is closed. Thank you very much.